Welcome to the long-awaited 10K Q&A, or I guess the A's to the Q's from a few months ago. I've been working on this video for several months, and it's been quite the process of writing, revising, editing, and tinkering with the video medium. I'm going to be trying something different and add footnotes, or I guess endnotes, to the video in the form of supplemental, unlisted videos and a playlist for additional detail and to preempt some follow-up questions. Playlist link is in the cards for expanded answers. Otherwise, a lot of these questions will get a brief response. There were 24 unique commenters, with a total of about 40 questions. Similar questions will be compiled together, and multi-part questions may be separated for flow. Questions will be organized into rough categories, which will be labeled in the chapters. So, with all that out of the way, let's start with a totally organic comment from TCGT Plant. Why did this response take so long to come out? What have you been up to? Where are your priorities at? Unfortunately, things came up. I recently got a full-time job, which has severely limited time, energy, and concentration available for video creation. On top of that, I've taken on several larger projects. Holiday videos like the St. Patrick's Day coin flip cards generally get high priority, because if I miss a deadline, I have to wait a whole year for the next chance to get it out. Which has happened before with the Father's Day Dark Arm Dragon special. Immediately going from a big project to a sequel video, and this one was a tactical blunder. The die roll video was pretty deep in development, but the iron is cold, so it'll have to be a 2025 release, unfortunately. I really miss being able to get out weekly videos, but unfortunately I keep taking on more ambitious projects. I'm doing the best I can, but at the end of the day, this is still a one-man show, unless you count my echo, my shadow, and me. I personally feel bad every time I miss a deadline, but I keep moving forward. Even if I have to slow down or delay projects, the train won't stop. This video ended up taking way longer to come out than I planned, and I was planning on adding even more additional segments on top of the Q&A, including additional behind-the-scenes, sneak peeks, philosophy, and retrospection segments. Those are probably going to end up as snippets at the end of streams. To delay it even further, I was planning on making a big video on alternate projects I've been working on, because I'm not always able to be on the computer working on content for the channel. But that is for the endnotes. Our first block is some general comments. Starting with one from Indie Studios. I'm personally happy that you've continued on YouTube for so long despite channel ups and downs. Bet. I'd always have respect for that. Thank you. Thank you! I appreciate the patience. I know I'm less consistent than I want to be, but I have no plans on stopping until I've gotten everything I want to say onto the channel, which will be many years, at least. I just have to keep in mind that it's a marathon, not a sprint. SportsMax chimes in with more appreciation. Let's go, baby! Your channel rocks! Thank you! Reaching the 10,000 subscriber milestone is literally an accomplishment that I could not do without the support of fans and viewers in general. I'm so glad that you and others are enjoying the content, and I want to say thank you again. Thank you, all of you. Now on to questions about the main game, starting with one from Yin Yan Yao. My question is, well, how do you rate a card game's feel? This is such an interesting design question. To me, a card game strikes a delicate balance between strategic play and randomness. A universal resource system can help with balance, but to tell the truth, that's not always the point. I really enjoy Munchkin. Here is my steampunk copy of the game, and that game allows you to cheat, gives out bonus levels arbitrarily, and even has a critical flaw where you can just keep drawing traps and never face an actual monster battle. Changing gears, I love the freedom of deck building, so open or semi-open design space is important to me. My biggest turnoff to a game is terrible balance, which causes dominant strategies, or worse, games which are so obviously pay to win. Glad Yu-Gi-Oh! Never has either of those problems. Indie Studios, oh, that name sounds familiar, has a trio of questions. What was your first Yu-Gi-Oh! Experience like? Durda Hinton has a similar question, so I'll be answering both now. I very distinctly remember my first experience with the physical card game. I might have seen the anime beforehand, and I might have also seen some other TCGs like Pokemon, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Instantly caught my attention. I saw my neighbor playing against his brother, and he used Metamorphosis on Skull Servant to bring out Thousand Eyes Restrict, and I just thought that that was the coolest thing, being able to do wild combos like that. If you've never played with Metamorphosis, it really was fun back in the day. Design limiting card definitely, but it makes old formats feel that much more unique. Second question, what made you a better player from when you started? After that first experience, I played hundreds of games, but I know that I only won about 5 against that particular neighbor. He actually understood how the game worked, and had a deck which was meta, at least for the time, while I was trying to make chaos decks work, filled with normal monsters, or trying to megamorph my tribute summon Blue Eyes White Dragon. I did not understand any of the fundamentals of the game, like card advantage, tempo, combos, or anything. In my defense, the anime, at least Duel Monsters, does a poor job of explaining how the main game actually works, or what strategies are even viable. What actually helped me to start getting better at the game was breaking down mechanics, understanding resource management, understanding specific language like discarding versus sending, and eventually seeing other players on YouTube. I never stopped playing jank though, but that might just be a personal flaw. Or maybe it's a feature, not a bug. Speaking of which, what would be your personal favorite decks/deck types, regardless of format or meta? I've always been curious. I really enjoy hero decks, mainly because I love the fusion summon. Plant Synchro is a lot of fun because of the toolbox nature. I love improvisation. One of my favorite eras was Zexal, where it was viable to run a lot of decks with the right tech, or maybe a meta engine or two, such as Clownblade or Hands or Artifacts and whatnot. I like a lot of deck building freedom. In terms of archetypes, Blackwings, Kawaki Meiru, and Zombies. I'm a fan of Link monsters, but only after the most recent Master Rule change. I would love to be in some non-meta playgroups again, but the internet has changed things. Information is so easy to come by that it leads to a higher level of play, but also metagame centralization. I think my favorite bad archetype would be pre-Speedroid Roids, but they were actually borderline meta at a few points. Expressroid really carries the archetype. In terms of recent meta, I do like Snake Eye, but you have to mix them with Lavals or Volcanics for me. Next question is from Echo Entertainment. What cards would you have put in the 2-player starter set? I think about this sort of question a lot, because onboarding new players in the game is a nightmare. There are 25 years worth of cards, mechanics stacked on top of each other, specific language, rulings, everything. Simple cards are probably better, but that leads to players getting blown out of the water after they move from the title zone to the abyss. Gradually increasing complexity is a good idea, but cramming every extra deck summon into one deck is probably not a good idea. I think the best onboarding would be a single-player Yu-Gi-Oh! RPG that takes you through every generation as a distinct act. But talking about my Yu-Gi-Oh! Video game ideas is a topic for another video. I think I would probably go for effect monsters, which do one thing, like Junk Synchron. Simple, easy to understand, with an obvious use case, but not so restrictive as to only be used in that one case. I'm going to field 2 related questions from Spoofy and Tulio next. Spoofy starts with, what old card would you like to see get turned into a proper archetype, similar to the recent Flame Swordsman support? Tulio has a related question. Between supporting old cards to make them viable, or remaking cards, what do you think about it? For starters, I'm on the fence about supporting older cards. I don't like the Gaia support, for instance, but it can be done well. I like Blaze Accelerator Reload a lot. I think one issue that you run into with supporting older cards, or archetypes, is bloat. A lot of newer cards are good on release, but still require the older cards, making them awkward. One thing Konami has been improving on is making demi-specific cards, like the topical Flame Swordsman support, that are a little splashable but not generic enough to fit into any warrior or fire deck. For an example of what I want to see expanded is Green Baboon Defender of the Forest. I like the Of the Forest micro-archetype, and I think a load of beast support with strong theming on recycling cards and life point costs would be cool. Bonus points for incorporating the mythical beasts related card series. Speaking of series, the Magician asks about cycles. Thanks a lot for your awesome videos. Thank you. Can you please talk about Yu-Gi-Oh! Cycles? As you know, Magic has a cycle in every set where every color gets a card, and they are somehow similar in design or artwork. Like in Yu-Gi-Oh!, there are recruiters for every attribute. So I've done research on cycles, and there is sort of enough for a video. It really depends on how loosely you define it, though. The wiki likes to list archetypes which have a member representing each attribute, like chessboard archfiends or Yang Zings, or quite a few others. Talking about the Night Cycle, the Charmer series, the Attribute Spirits, and maybe the Attribute Linked retrains could be enough for a video, but I feel like at least some of that is retreading ground. Another problem is incomplete cycles, like the Channelers, where they have not released all the members yet. At the time of writing, several months ago, we're still waiting for the Water, Light, and Dark Channelers, although those last two will probably take longer due to their power level. I'm doing something with attribute support, so a compilation of cycles may be in the future as a tertiary product from that project. What's Up Bossa Nova has several questions, two of which I'm going to tackle now. How do you feel about the way the 25th anniversary has been handled? I think the nostalgia baiting was inevitable, but not too egregious. I think they jumped the shark when they made the breakfast cereal without calling it Yu-Gi-Oh's. Second question is, what are your top 5 favorite sets of the TCG/OCG before the Series 4 merge? And let's hit Heroes Guild Games question at the same time. Do you have a favorite era you played or a favorite booster set from Yu-Gi-Oh? These questions could be an entire video. I think Pharaoh's Servant is still my favorite. Probably after that is Invasion of Chaos, Pharaonic Guardian, Flaming Eternity, and then maybe Spell Ruler. As for the OCG, I really need to dig into the release order. I know the theming in the OCG sets was much tighter, where multiple sets were mashed together to get the TCG releases. I'm putting it on the backlog. Might even get to it this year if I'm lucky. I feel like my favorite set and meta are sort of unrelated. I like when the speed of the game was slow enough for staple trap cards, but that is most of the history of the game. I think I'm going to choose either Edison or Bujin Girga format though, although GOAT is the greatest of all time. On the same note, Magpius asks, I know it's just speculation, but do you have any predictions/hopes about any potential Master Rule change? I'm not sure if I can accurately convey this, but some sort of restriction on the number or types of summons in a turn that gradually increases as the game progresses. But that is tricky to explain to new players. Maybe you could tie in another resource, but that is moving into completely different design territory. I think Pendulums irreparably accelerated the pace of power creep by giving many archetypes easy special summons, while also devaluing removal and giving decks way too much recovery. Whose idea was it to have a mechanic that's just a free soul charge every turn? Links and Pendulums are not all bad though. As Tulio asks, any particular Link monsters and Pendulum monsters that you think are neat/clever? I really like Link Spider. Just love normal support. Speaking of which, Hallow Hallow is my favorite Pendulum monster. I love the flavor text. Beyond that, I like the math and computer science puns. While we're going over Tulio's questions, let's go ahead and knock off 2 more. Do you have a card that has sentimental value for you? And which one is it? Lots of them. I want to make things crystal clear before anyone thinks that I have a tragic backstory. My brother is fine. Nothing happened to him. We're just busy as adults, and I live in a different city now. That being said, some of the sentimental cards that come to mind are cards from his 100-card deck. I think it had the exclusive pack Sphinxes, Demise King of Armageddon, and Sacred Phoenix of Nifs. There was a lot of other ones, but those are the ones that stand out. It has been a while since we've gone to play, but who knows? Maybe my brother will get an appearance on channel, profiling his childhood deck one day. Tulio's final question is on the direction to take the game going forward. One thing you would like to see Yu-Gi-Oh! Try in the future. I would like the game to get slower. I'm not saying that more stun would help, or better hand traps, or even a master rule change like I mentioned with Magpius. I just think the game being so weighted towards the first few turns means that the input randomness of the opening hands makes it much less engaging. I mean, going first, you need to make a big explosive play, or when going second, you need multiple hand traps or some special board breaking tools. In either case, if you draw poorly, you can lose the duel without much interaction. I like going back and forth and possibly even seeing round 10. Not every game should go to nearly decking out, but I think compressing the game to just a few rounds makes me sad. More grind game, to answer in 3 words. Changing gears, Valen Yaver brings up an interesting quirk in the battle mechanics of Yu-Gi-Oh! What are your thoughts on the battle system of Yu-Gi-Oh!, which immediately has a clear winner and loser, as compared to other games like Magic the Gathering, where monsters have health pools that you have to get to 0 in order for a monster to die? This is actually a topic on the board. From time to time, I think about making more cross-game comparative videos, but it is tricky. On this topic, I think it ends up changing the way that small monsters are evaluated. Burn damage too. In Magic or Hearthstone, several small creatures / minions can be used to overcome one large one, making small monsters more attractive. But that also has a lot to do with the mana system. I think the big consequence ends up being high attack points being overvalued in the anime, as strange as that sounds. In the main game, most monsters are used for their effects, either as stepping stones or utility effects. So much so that removal by battle is so unreliable that most floaters now specify being destroyed by an opponent's card in general. I think the other half of this is burn is not soft removal in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where in Magic or Hearthstone, your burn damage can sometimes be directed to kill creatures or minions. Dragon's Gunfire does this in the main game, where it's modal and can either be used as Ukazi or conditional removal. This also makes running a burn deck a big commitment, where your main game plan is to stall or get enough card advantage to burn out your opponent. In Magic and Hearthstone, cards like Fireball or Fireball can be used in the early to mid game to take out minor threats, but then in the later game can be used to go for game. On the other hand, getting instant results from a decisive battle is more exciting than chipping away at a threat, especially in Magic where they heal back to full at the end of the turn. One part of Magic I dislike is feeling like you're going to be able to have a favorable block, and your opponent hits you with a combat trick to boost their creature's health just enough to survive the battle. That and board stalls, which is something that does not really happen as much in Yu-Gi-Oh! In Magic, the whole declare blockers in general is pretty awkward for me. It feels like too many turns just pass without much action. Finishing off the main game questions, we have one from Quick Bob Hero. I'm late, but figured I'd try anyways. What are your thoughts on the art style shift in Yu-Gi-Oh? Personally, especially from the competitive perspective, the recent incoherent and modernized art style has killed my interest in the game. They still make cool decks like Branded and Chimera, and I can't pinpoint when this truly kicked off, but much of the time, archetypes and extra deck staples are becoming anime girl turbo, and the game has just felt so artistically generic that I don't know why I'm still playing. And you think you are late. I'm not sure when it started, maybe Metal Foes, Trickstar, Trap Tricks. If you want to go really far, then you could say the Charmers and the Familiar Possessed. Back in my day, cards used to be nightmare fuel, like Dark Necrofear, Necroface, Plague Spreader, Zombie, Shadow Ghoul, and whatever this is. But don't get me wrong, I really enjoy a lot of the more modern card art, too. Melfi Staring Contest and Emerging Emergency Rescute are some of my favorites on the other side of the spectrum. Bottom line, I recommend just playing what you enjoy, or maybe taking a hiatus until something catches your eye. That's it for the main game questions, so let's move on to the anime questions with an email from Agari. Hello Kaga, I first wanted to congratulate you on reaching 10,000 subscribers. Thank you. That's quite the milestone. As for my question, you have spoken numerous times about how GX is your favorite of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. And that has me wondering, what is your favorite duel? I personally think that the first duel between Manjome and Judai is the best. It is a fantastic, self-contained story where Judai is able to overcome all the odds thanks to doing a good deed. I'm looking forward to your answer and any future endeavors. Keep up the wonderful videos and take it easy. I'll do one of those things. Thanks in advance, Agari. P.S. I'm not a subscriber myself because I refuse to have a YouTube account. So that's why I'm contacting you via email. That was an option for a reason. This is also one of the questions asked by Tulio, so here's that comment as well. I was actually going to say the duel where Chaz and Jaden are both left with no cards, and it comes down to the final draw, where Jaden draws a monster and attacks directly for game, but this is actually the same duel you mentioned. To me, I really like how evenly matched the two duelists were. Beyond that, staying on GX for a second, I really enjoyed Truman as a character, and a lot of the duels he participated in. I think my second favorite, though, would probably be the prison duel from 5Ds between Armstrong and Yusei. I like how this was not a speed duel and that Armstrong was cheating. It adds a level of mind games on top of the normal strategy, where Yusei is able to exploit Armstrong's assumptions. I also like the callback to Yugi vs. Pegasus in Duel Monsters, which is probably in my top 10 duels as well. I'm a sucker for tunes. Thank you for taking the time to write out an email. I really appreciate it. And now, let's get on to the other anime question. Cool Cat asks, are you a Yubel simp? No. Moving on to other games. Leading the pack again is What's Up Bossa Nova. Would you ever do a Let's Play or a live comm of one of the games? Namely, Forbidden Memories or Duelist of the Roses, since they're the most interesting in my opinion. There is a commented playthrough from a particular game in the works, World Championship 2006, I think. For anyone that doesn't know, Forbidden Memories and Duelist of the Roses are in their own category, called True Duel Monsters. The mechanics are just really far divorced from the main game, so I think that they should be thought of as their own thing. Capsule Monsters too. I don't know much about Destiny Board Traveler, so it might be fun to be able to do a blind reaction to. Nick Romano asks, will you cover other games than Yu-Gi-Oh? I would love to be able to cover more games, but there are a couple problems. The first is just how YouTube works, where there's an expectation of getting into a niche and sticking with it. I'm not even talking about the algorithm either. Your audience has the expectation for seeing a particular kind of video from you, and I feel like I need to put out content within that niche. It gets even worse when you think about Yu-Gi-Oh! Because people just invest so much time and money and energy into it as a hobby that it leads to hostility for other card games in some instances. I tried to make the channel about card games in general, but quickly realized that I had way more to say about Yu-Gi-Oh! The channel logo is meant to reflect the multi-card game focus, but it has not been relevant for some time. Let's fix that. The first video on the channel, more than 5 years ago, was on the mana curve in Hearthstone, assigning value to stats and keywords, and just look at the roughness on display. Learn to use PNGs, you chump. The other half of covering other card games is just the huge time investment necessary to learn mechanics and card pools. And right now, I'm still overburdened with ideas for this channel. Mute Maiden asks, unrelated to Yu-Gi-Oh, but do you have a favorite game/game series? Unrelated to Yu-Gi-Oh, I would probably say the Fallout series. Big fan of 1 and 2, New Vegas, and I actually had a lot of fun with 76. Recently, I finally got the Outer Wilds, but have not had time to play it. All the free time ends up going into video production right now, which is my choice, and I love doing it. When Pal World came out, it was an amazing few weeks, but after completing the Pal deck, I have not played much since. The game is still amazing, but I'm waiting for more content. I like Diablo 2 a lot, but I never got into further entries in the series. Path of Exile scratches the same itch for me, but what always happens to me is I will just start a new character to try out a new class, then play up until the prison, then forget about the game for a few months. I still really enjoy it, but it's a lighter experience. Like I've never used a wiki for any reason. Just bumming my way through the early chapters and using whatever gems or skills seem interesting. It's nice to not worry about min-maxing. I have a lot of time in RuneScape, specifically RS3, but I just can't play it anymore. The game can be very fun at times, but does not feel like it respects my time. I maxed, got Quest Cape, and have not really played since the Hero Pass debacle. I was actually one of the players that was using the Zamorak buff to learn the boss, since there is not a great practice mode. I mean, you still need to bring in your own supplies, so you basically have all the GP cost with no chance of reward in practice mode. So at that point, you might as well try and die until you can beat it. The bossing is fantastic, but everything just feels like it drains GP, or is there to get me to spend real-world money. Not a great game environment. Sure glad Yu-Gi-Oh! Never has those problems. Speaking of which, Tulio asks if I am playing Master Duel. Unfortunately, no. I haven't had time to play any games in months, unfortunately. As mentioned earlier, all my free time ends up going into channel production. We will get to channel production questions closer to the end of the video, but for now, Let's touch down on some other questions. Superfan Alexander McKay has a very supportive comment, as well as a question. I've watched several TCG channels, and this is the only one I'm subscribed to. Your authenticity and kindness to your viewers really comes across as genuine, and I hope you always stay that way. Heart. What's your favorite food? Thank you for the support. As far as favorite foods, my better half recently made some really good stuffed peppers. But her kitchen sink spaghetti is also fantastic. Quick cultural note, kitchen sink means that there's a lot of different ingredients. It's not actually cooked in the sink. Following this, Eli Taku asks about language proficiency. What languages do you speak? Have you ever played Yu-Gi-Oh! In a language other than English? If so, which ones? Going with the short answer here and longer answer in an endnote. Fluent English, limited ability in Mandarin and Japanese. Several high school years of Mandarin and 1 semester of college Japanese. This is nowhere near enough to consider playing Yu-Gi-Oh! In either language. Following this, we have a frequent stream fan, Rain McKnight. What is your favorite Batman villain? Bane. He is just so compelling, being an intellectual equal to Batman, but choosing to sacrifice his future for power in the present. I really like him as a foil, especially since he won. What did Bane set out to do? To break the bat. And what did he do? He broke the bat's back. He took Bruce out for quite a while, and most people will never come back from a broken back. Except Bruce Wayne and actually Bruce Lee. Maybe there's something powerful in the name Bruce. But I digress to the most difficult question on the list. Volatile asks, red or blue? Blue, hex code OE3DDO for the audio-only viewers. Before we get into channel content, SportsMax has a general question on creative endeavors. What did you do before TCG Theory? Short answer, higher education. Long answer will be shown in a far future video. It was scheduled for this year, but it ended up getting delayed, like a lot of other things. I don't mean as an endnote, I mean a fairly long video, but not too many spoilers for now. Let's start off the channel content and production questions with the last one from Tulio. Any views on the Yu-Gi-Oh! Community you would like to bring up? Not really. I have very limited interaction on the internet or otherwise. I just don't use the internet for social functions. Off the wired, I'm mostly around family and don't have a lot of time for other social interactions. It sounds bad, but I'm very satisfied with this level of socialization. I think the idea of over-socialization has some merit. It's all just big extrovert, man. For the record, I'm not an introvert, I'm an ambivert, so right in the middle according to multiple personality instruments. We can follow this up with What's Up Bozanova's question on community leaders. What are your thoughts on Yu-Gi-Oh's community and the sort of figureheads behind most online discourse in the community? I've actually only seen a handful of Yu-Gi-Oh related videos since I started the channel. Mostly I do not want to step on anyone's toes or make derivative content. Any similar videos coming out are genuine coincidence. In terms of effects on the community, I think the internet and neck decking has been a part of the game for the majority of its history by now. Running into a bunch of the same deck after a new video comes out can be annoying, but I think it's pretty harmless. There are definitely metagame distortions, where I think formats are prematurely declared solved, where more experimentation can be done with the existing card pool, but that is probably a function of hindsight in general. Ready Fusion also has a question based on community interactions, but this time I have much more to say. Are there any other content creators you admire or that inspire you? Who are they? I'm going to take this question as an opportunity to point out two of my favorites. It's not going to be restricted to just Yu-Gi-Oh though. I've really been enjoying the videos from 2C Phoenix, and I strongly recommend the channel. His production quality is fantastic. Jason Graves is another channel I really enjoy. I like his take on retro RPGs, but there is something special which creeps into his videos sometimes. Like in the Dragon Quest V video, where he has this profound moment of grief. It was totally unexpected, but also very raw, powerful, and in the end, something I'm glad to have experienced. His dedication is crazy too. That Google Earth video is something that has been on my mind for weeks now. I can't believe he got his Q&A out before me. And on top of that, I can't believe he got his 10K Q&A out before me. Beyond that, I am shamelessly ripping off imported cheese for the streams, which are back now, so there is no need to answer the most popular question from the comments. More generally, I don't know how to interact with other creators. I've tried going into my backyard and shouting "parlay" to no effect. I'm very open to collaboration, and here is an email if you are a content creator interested in making videos together. But you need to keep your release window expectations really low. Finishing off that thought, we have a question from Mac. Who are your biggest inspirations when it comes to making videos? So, a lot of these creators are going to be from a decade ago, and some have stopped posting, but Galactic God was cool. Megacapital G was a treat every time he posted a video, even if it was a slideshow. X Members Underground X was awesome, and a particular influence. First, the 6 Paths of Pain challenge was just a really neat idea. And second, that channel was the first time I saw a creator put images of the actual cards as an overlay on top of normal footage. It sounds so insignificant now, really easy compositing, but it was just raising the bar above the competition for me. And more importantly, gave me a video production goal to strive toward. Fair warning though, the channel had a lot of profanity, especially sexual and racial slurs, so possibly avoid their much older content. Or at least go in with this warning. Personally, I want to keep raising the bar with the visuals on the channel, but I doubt I will ever get to that level of Yugi-mation. I can dream though. Links to all these creators are in the show notes. Let's get to another question from Mac. How do you come up with the ideas for your videos? I have way too many ideas, which is starting to cause new problems. I'm constantly thinking about what to make for the channel, and I've been working more on writing down and refining ideas instead of coming up with a bunch of rough ideas, quickly moving from one to the next. The theme this year is organization, and I will show some of the process and tools of the trade in a footnote. Mac actually has 2 more questions, moving into the actual channel content. Will you ever do a face reveal, or are you planning on never doing one? That is something you can only do once, and if I'm going to do it, it's going to be for charity. So maybe part of a live event or something. I think I might end up getting some exposure if I ever get the chance to go to a major tournament, but that is fine. Last question from Mac is, will you ever do more interviews on your channel? If yes, with whom? The answer is maybe. I enjoy them, but scheduling is the biggest problem. I just don't have much free time, and what I do have gets frequently interrupted. Another problem is just editing down all the audio can take quite a while, and there are generally some problems with recording. So maybe not so much interviews, as much as dedicated scripted collaborations. But at this rate, it would be months between recording and the video actually coming out, unfortunately. This video was supposed to end with the dramatic reveal of returning to livestream content, because that was by far the most popular question asked. Instead, I ended up returning to live content mainly just to be able to get something out. I'm planning on going live after this premiere, if things go according to plan. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the live portion, and I will be fielding questions which came up during this premiere as well. I guess all that's left is the final question from TCGT Plant. What's next, Kaga? Well, hopefully I'm going to be able to get out more content. Either a live stream or a main channel video a couple times a month. I'm going to try to work on consistency as much as possible, but I'm working on several 100-hour-plus projects right now. One of the major ones is just getting a comprehensive list of support for attributes and types. It's not always obvious what generic support is out there, and sometimes the wiki lists hundreds of specific cards. Hence, the enhance your deck curated lists. By the way, I sort of want to change that format, but later. Beyond that, I'm learning a lot about statistics so that I can hopefully do a detailed probability video. And if you have a degree in mathematics, especially in probability or combinatorics, please get in touch so that I can run the script rough draft by you before I make a bigger fool of myself on the internet. Hopefully October will be a good month, and I have a plan for the end of the year as well. I've scheduled some vacation time to get more content out on the channel, and before you say that I should be on a beach or a cruise to relax, In either of those cases, all I end up wanting to do is create content and get disappointed by not being able to work on things. The drive to create is very strong, especially when I get downtime. There is going to be more practice with Blender, including some modeling and hopefully better lighting management. It's good to know that there will always be new mountains on the horizon. And now, let's see if we can get that live stream going.